Today's guest is a professor of economics at Rice University. He's a prominent labor economist who has produced some highly influential work on human capital formation, especially on how policymakers and parents can promote the development of children. This week he's been in Bergen to lecture on the Summer School on Socioeconomic Inequality, which we have been proud to host here at the FAIR Center. Welcome to Coffee with Professor Flavio Cunha. So Flavio, you work on how parents can best promote the development of their children. Specifically, you work on language formation and how mothers talk to their kids. Why is this so important, and why do you, as an economist, find this topic interesting?
So the early language development is really important for many reasons. I like to point out to people that in the United States, if you look at low-income children who, once they become adults, about 40% of them actually have a hard time reading. And the reason why they have a hard time reading is not because they can't decode words, it's because they can't understand a paragraph that they actually have just read. And this is really dominated by language comprehension skills. And language comprehension skills really are formed early on in the lives of children, and primarily between back and forth interactions between adults and children. So a lot of my research nowadays is, why aren't many kids actually getting enough of this back and forth with the adults in their lives? And part of it is because the adults don't seem to understand that brain development in regions that guide language development actually are reactive to the language environment that children have. So we developed this new intervention in which what we tell parents is, this is really important. Here are some ideas about ways that you can interact with your child that is going to be fun. And by the way, it's not that you have to reorganize your entire life to do it. And then, by the way, here's a little device that is going to tell you how well you're doing it. And what we learned is that A, parents really didn't know. They're surprised about the evidence that comes from science about the importance of language environment for language development. And B, that they become really hooked into getting these statistics from us. Am I doing better? I have many parents who come to sessions, they give me the device that measured how, the device that they used in the last week, and they ask me, just tell me, was I a good parent or a bad parent last week? I think that they really become, this is a way for them to motivate. And fantastic, what we see is that it's not so much that they start more conversations with the kids, is that once the kids start conversations with them, they start responding in different ways. They start responding in ways that lead to more interaction. So they don't just say yes or no when the child asks a question. And that's what we know brings more language development, is this back and forth, because this is instances of joint attention and then speech recasting or speech modeling, which is the way children actually learn language.
Very interesting. That's very interesting. So you also, I know that you're affiliated with the Texas Policy Lab. Also at FAIR, we try to inform policymakers. So tell us a bit about how you use economic tools and insights to inform the policymakers there.
So as an economist, I really believe that long-run economic growth is the product of innovation, right? And we have lots of innovation in the private sector, right? So they spend a lot of resources trying to get us better products, or trying to get the same products but produced at a much lower cost so that more people can actually afford it. Unfortunately, we don't see as much investment in improving public policy. I like to say to people that, if you think of a woman who was 65 years old in the United States in the 1960s, and she had been diagnosed with breast cancer, that the treatment in the 1960s was completely different from what the treatment is nowadays. But the notion of how we reimburse physicians and hospitals for the treatment is more or less the same, in spite of immense progress in how we actually treat, how we diagnose, and how we prevent some of these diseases to occur. So I think that we need to have more investment in public policy, and this is the goal of the Texas Policy Lab. So we partner with government entities, whether they are local or state in Texas, and they establish the agenda. Here are problems we would like to solve. How can we use science to help us solve this problem? All of the work that we do is pro bono. Literally, we don't actually charge anything from state or local governments because we really think that many of the most challenging problems that we have are exactly the ones that don't have a lot of resources for them to investigate and how to use science. So it's bridging the gap in terms of using science to help innovate in public policy so that we can serve more people at a lower cost.
That sounds like a very important job and center there, and very relevant for us at the FAIR Center. So with those words, I'd like to thank Flavio Cunha for coming and having coffee with us here at FAIR.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me here.